Okay, yibbity but everybody. Hope you're doing good and fantastic. I really appreciate everybody coming through. Just doing a little bit of a episode here, talking Trichome on Tuesday, FairGrow channel. Much peace, much appreciation, everybody coming through. I do hope the screen is going to come through clear. I'm just doing a share screen instead of share the whole screen instead of doing each window time by time. But so I can't really see what's going on, but just keep it at this and we'll go from here. I just wanted to put this stream up, as once again, like, this is not legal advice. This is just general overview of this information. If you do want to seek definitive legal advice, go speak to counsel, try and a legal advisor, or maybe look up the legislation yourself and have a good read through it. I did put the links to each of these sites I'm referring to in the chat, so you can check it yourself. This main one being what I'm going to start with, the Narcotics Drugs Amendment Act of 2016 for the Australian Federal Constitution. And there should be a link in the chat there for you people to check out. So, because there's a little bit of confusion going on at the moment, and I don't actually know completely myself the full utmost answer. That's why I'm saying this is not legal advice, but I have gone through the system quite a few times myself, and studied law for 3 semesters. So, just speaking from experience. And that's why I'm trying to take it to these websites where this is the actual places when you go to court and your legal team and representation or the prosecution, they'll be referring to these documents. And that's where they're going to be getting all their information from to try and fit the situation around your circumstance. So from that, just about the cultivation, there's a lot of definitions you can see here on the screen. But cultivation seems to be thought of as something which is copious amounts of plants that you're producing or manufacturing, but that's not the case at all. The case is for a single element. It could be you germinating one seed. That is still considered cultivation. So you can see here in the middle, cultivate, like this is, as I said, the it's the Narcotics Act, right? So it's been it started in 1967. That's the Narcotic Drugs Act of 1967, but obviously amendments have been made, so changes have been made, and this is updated to. This might be updated to 2016, but there is definitely updates to 2022, and I'll probably get there in a second. But some are still relevant if they haven't been amended. So back to the cultivation, it says here, cultivate a cannabis plant includes the following. A, sow a seed of a cannabis plant, so a single cannabis plant. Sow a seed of a cannabis plant. B, plant, grow, tend, nurture, or harvest a cannabis plant, so a single plant. C, graft, divide, or transplant a cannabis plant. Then it says, but does not include the separation of cannabis or cannabis resin from a cannabis plant. So that, if you can understand that basically the the harvesting time, or if you're trying to remove the resin and make a hash, that is not cultivating. But the 3 sections above include the definition of cultivate. And checking up on the last stream that I did a few days back or last week, these sections are not the total of it, because it says there includes the following. So even tending to like a soil plot, that is still considered cultivation, but they will have to prove beyond reasonable doubt you intended for that plot of soil to be used for a cannabis cultivation. So that's probably pretty difficult to do, to prove beyond reasonable doubt, unless there is, a massive evidence there that it's all written down and structured and things like that. There's different situations, different circumstances, and they're all, have different outcomes. So you can't really generalize anything. Unless certain circumstance, they take it to case law, and then there's a pretense to it. But yeah, just going on that fact there. So it's not, those three aren't the total of it, but it includes. So just to say that it is a single plant, and any form of trying to nurture that plant to grow is considered cultivation. So even germination, like, is, or if you get the taproot out of the seed, that would be considered, you're cultivating that cannabis. So that's one thing there. Now I'll go to this next website, investingnews.com. So this is a state-by-state guide to cannabis in Australia. Kind of gives like a little bit of an overview of it all. So, and as I said, the links are in the chat if you guys want to check it out. So I'll just try and read through this pretty quickly. Cannabis is largely illegal in Australia, but the rules differ from state to state. Here's what to know about cannabis in all 8 areas of the country. Australia made waves when it federally legalised cannabis in 2016, and its marijuana market has experienced significant growth since then. A study from Fresh Leaf Analytics pegs Australian medical market sales at $95 million in 2020, while research firm Prohibition Partners indicates that Oceania's cannabis industry is expected to be worth US $1.55 billion by 2024. Medicinal cannabis is expected to amount for 40% of the industry. So this obviously keeps going down here. I'll just keep going. Despite their growth, the country's cannabis industry is still young. Recreational use is not yet in sight, and even medical access remains limited and highly regulated. Currently, one medicinal cannabis product, Sativax, is registered with the Therapeutics Goods Administration, and none are subsidized through the country's pharmaceutical benefits scheme. Patients who want access to medical cannabis must go through special pathways, and doctors who want to prescribe medical cannabis have to apply and do so. So obviously this document came out a little bit of time ago, so there are more products on the TGA. You can go to Canna Review's website and check that out to see all the products on the TGA, or even check out the TGA website for like the different products and stuff like that available. So this situation gets more complex at state and territory level, as each area of Australia has different rules and regulations that must be followed. Read on for a breakdown of the laws for medical recreational cannabis in Australia, 6 states and 2 territories. So now we'll just take a little bit of an overview from this website as she breaks down state by state, just a kind of brief little overview, a paragraph to sum things up. So, Guide to Cannabis in Australia. In New South Wales, use, supply and possession of cannabis is illegal in New South Wales. However, first-time offenders with a small amount on hand may only be issued a caution. Up to 2 cautions can be received, and they often come with a referral for drug-related information. The New South Wales government recognises the potential of medicinal cannabis to treat debilitating or terminal illness. Any doctor can prescribe medical cannabis if it is determined an appropriate treatment and the doctor has the approvals required to do so. In another show of support for the drug, the New South Wales government has established the Centre for Medicinal Cannabis Research and Innovation to educate the community and monitor clinical trials. Right? So in Victoria, recreational possession and use of cannabis is a criminal offence in Victoria, but similar to New South Wales, those caught with a first offence of 50 grams or less are typically given a caution and directions to attend drug counselling. It's more serious if there are additional charges or if a person is found with an amount over 50 grams. 250 grams is considered a trafficable quantity of cannabis. Medicinal cannabis can be prescribed by any doctor for any patient with any condition if they believe it is clinically appropriate. Victoria was the first state to legalise medical marijuana use, and young children suffering from epilepsy were the first to gain access. So, obviously, this is just summing up everything. There's not every detail of the law, and with these terms, like trafficable amounts, that terminology, you should refer to a law dictionary, like a legal dictionary, to gain like a good overview and definition of that. So we'll go to here. Guide to Cannabis in Australia, Queensland. In Queensland, growing cannabis or recreational use is illegal under 4 different acts. Under the Drug Misuse Act of 1986, unlawful possession, supply, production, and trafficking have maximum penalties of up to 25 years imprisonment, depending on circumstances such as how much cannabis is involved. Medicinal cannabis is less frowned upon in Queensland, as many registered medical practitioners in the state can prescribe medical cannabis if clinically appropriate. After new legislation changes in June 2020, any Queensland doctor can prescribe Schedule 4 CBD or Schedule 8 THC or CBD products without a formal approval from the state health authorities. Medicinal cannabis can be administered via vapor, capsules, sprays, or tinctures. Smoking cannabis is not allowed in Queensland. Interestingly, advertising medicinal cannabis is restricted to the medical, wholesale, and pharmaceutical professions only. Right, very interesting. I'll just see if the link there shows the different acts. Okay, it does there, so I'll go back to that one in a second. Go down to South Australia. Guide to Cannabis in South Australia. Cannabis, cannabis oil, and cannabis resin are illegal to keep, use, grow, sell, or give away in South Australia. Possession for personal use can be penalised with an expiation, which means a fine that does not attract a criminal conviction. Large-scale trafficking or selling can attract big penalties of up to $500,000 Australian and 15 years to life imprisonment, or both. Those looking for medical cannabis products can obtain them via prescription from an authorised medical practitioner in the region. Approval under South Australian Controlled Substances legislation is also often required, although there are exemptions for elderly and terminal patients. So I'll click this here, the keep, use, grow, sell, or give away, see if it opens up to a window of Alright, cool. So there's another little bit there from the South Australian government page. So these are the websites you want to be trying to referring to, because these are the websites that your lawyers and legal team will be referring to, and the prosecution, as I said before. So I'll just continue on. We've got Western Australia, Tasmania, Northern Territory, and the ACT to go, so not very much. Western Australia. Even though Western Australia officially decriminalised cannabis in 2004, Liberal Premier Colin Barrett repealed the decision in 2011 as part of a tough-on-crime approach. Today, driving with THC in your system is an offence in Western Australia, regardless of whether it is medicinal or recreational. Personal cultivation is illegal. Medicinal cannabis is available via prescription from any doctor in Western Australia, providing they have required government approval. Prescriptions can be dispensed at any pharmacy. So, obviously there, when it says driving with THC in your system is an offence in Western Australia, that applies pretty much Australia-wide, and it's going to be definitely advised to you by your prescribing doctor and pharmacist and dispense, I guess, as they dispense. They should make you aware of, you should be unable to drive. It does mention on the box, because at the moment it's there's no leeway for that. There's no kind of consideration. It's just you can't have any cannabis in your system to drive. It's considered drug driving and intoxicated driving. So get to Tasmania here. Obtaining medicinal cannabis is arguably most complicated in Tasmania. A patient must have their general practitioner refer them to a relevant specialist. The specialist can then provide medicinal cannabis in limited circumstances once conventional treatment has been unsuccessful. Tasmania is taking steps to make medicinal cannabis more accessible. Starting on the 1st of July 2021, general practitioners will be able to fill out prescriptions, although the process is still expected to be slow. Possession of cannabis is still illegal in Tasmania. In fact, any utensil or appliance for preparation, smoking, or inhalation of cannabis is illegal and can attract a maximum fine of up to $7,950 Australian. Trafficking an amount of 25 grams of oil or 1 kilogram of plant material carries an imprisonment term of up to 21 years. Okay, so obviously do refer to the Tasmanian legislation, state legislation, if you want a more in-depth overview and definite answer to the regulations and laws. Just another interesting part there, I might add, how they've got 1 kilogram of plant material, because usually when in my experience, when you're charged and the police find you with a substance, like they can't guarantee what it is, cannabis. So they have a term called GLM, green leafy material, which kind of, has a broader definition and enables them to kind of, you know, capture a broader base, I guess, and then take it before the court to then find out what that actual material is. Northern Territory. So second last one here, just on this little state one, a little bit more. Thanks everybody for hanging around and shit. I do hope this is coming through clear. I haven't checked yet, but cannabis is largely decriminalised in the Northern Territory, but possession of a small quantity in public place still carries an imprisonment penalty. Possession of less than 50 grams in your own home is penalised with a fine only. The penalty for cultivating even small amounts of less than 5 plants is 200 penalty units or 2 years imprisonment. A commercial quantity of more than 20 plants results in life imprisonment. Okay, so even there, that sentence is getting to my point of cultivation is considered even 1 plant. So that can get you 2 years imprisonment or 20 plants, life imprisonment at the full extent, I guess, of the law. That's the maximum penalty you receive, so it'd be pretty harsh, and certain circumstances would only call for that penalty. The first NT medicinal cannabis patient to fill the script did so in November 2019, but uptake has been slow since then, and the Northern Territory has a low number of users. That's largely because there are few doctors who are authorised prescribers in Northern Territory, as the area is remote. Travel is not feasible for all residents. Right, I'd say that's one reason, and I'd also, have the intuition feeling that the price is something which is causing a lot of patients to not be able to access and miss out. So I would say a lot of the people who are partaking in cannabis now are there, but unfortunately they just don't fit the situation, and so they can't partake in the medicinal program, which is unfortunate, and I'm hoping for a change to that situation. So lastly, Guide to Cannabis in Australia, Australian Capital Territory. In September 2019, the Australian Capital Territory, ACT, passed a bill to legalise the possession of small amounts of cannabis for personal use as of January 31, 2020. Confusingly, the ACT state laws conflict with federal laws, which still prohibit the recreational use of cannabis. ACT residents who are over 18 can carry up to 50 grams of cannabis and grow as many as 4 plants, although the 50-gram amount is less than what 1 plant produces. Plants must be grown outdoors only, leaving them open to theft. Medicinal cannabis is available for patients with a number of conditions and also on a case-by-case basis. Doctors must have approval from the ACT Chief Health Officer and the TGA to prescribe. Don't forget to follow. Okay, so obviously there might be a little bit of sort of confusion with that statement there, because to my it says here it grows as many as 4 plants. That's 4 plants per household. I think it's 2 per person, maximum 4 per household. But yeah, so that's a little bit of as I said, just an overview, not legal advice. And then, as was stated there, most definitely, federally, cannabis is still illegal unless under the TGA approved medical program. That's Australia wide. If you're a medical patient, it's approved. But in anywhere else, in any of these circumstances, state by state, those federal laws could at any time trump the state law. But within the state borders, and if there is no kind of interruption from the federal side, then those rules, state laws, are deemed to be the ones that count. So what else have I got here? I'll just see. I do hope everything is coming through okay. Oh, yep. All good. I'm just checking on here now. Much appreciation to everybody coming through. I appreciate it. So as I said, there's links in the chat there, and if you want to get definite answers, just you got to speak to some legal advice or read the actual legislation of the states. Because I'm putting this info out there to try and be more definitive. Because there are people out there who day by day who are suffering immensely on these laws, and are being charged with heavy, heavy fines or even imprisoned. And at this moment, there are plenty of people who are experiencing that, who are locked up for very kind of as we see in our eyes, like then well they're non-violent. That's definite. Like there's growing, but kind of things that aren't harmful to society or aren't harming anybody. They're locked up right now. So this is important to get out there because tomorrow and then it'll continue. Police are out there to prosecute. So you've got to know your rights. You got to know how to kind of avoid them at all costs, like kind of beforehand, and just try and walk within the righteous way and step within your rights, I guess. So, that's why I want this information to get out there. That's important. It's really important to me because might be the people out there who've gone through their whole life and seem to, use every day and may have been lucky to get away with grows and never really seen the other side of the police, and that's very fortunate for you. That's great, but there's a lot of people out there who have not been so lucky and are penalized heavily and even imprisoned. Which is it's a huge effect on somebody's life. So and also the fact of chemical narcotics too. Like I want to push the information forward because I've experienced that. I know how it feels from both sides of the coin, and cannabis can be such a great saving grace for these people out there, and it should be obviously separated from that community. When people say cannabis is the gateway, I really disagree with that because I understand the fact that maybe because it is illegal, it is sold by the same person who has chemical narcotics, because basically they're the people out there who are the shop front for this. And most oftentimes, they do have um, multiple different uh, items and products. But if we could change that regulation and make cannabis change the stigma from it, make it available, or just change regulation. So yeah, somehow it's different. So um, it wouldn't be the gateway even in that sense because it's not in the same environment, and yeah, and this is just my opinion and I'm expressing. So, but it does count. But anyway, so we go to here. This is just a Wikipedia as well, so it's not really. I mean, it is information, and they have referred to down the bottom. So, as I said in the chat, the link's there. You can check it out. But I'll just read this first bit here. Um, I'll go to the top and see what it says. Oops. So I'll put cannabis in Australia, and legislation and policy. So in 1913, Australia signed the International Hague Convention on Narcotics and extended importation controls over drugs other than opium. 1921 saw the first international drug treaty, the Opium Convention, and in 1925, the Geneva Convention on the opium and other drugs saw restrictions imposed on the manufacture, importation, sale, distribution, exportation, and use of cannabis, opium, cocaine, morphine, and heroin for medical and scientific purpose only. In 1926, the Commonwealth government banned the importation of cannabis. In 1928, Victoria passed the Poisons Act and became the first state to control cannabis, followed by South Australia in 1934, New South Wales 1935, Queensland 1937, Western Australia 1950, and Tasmania 1959. In 1940, the Commonwealth extended import restrictions on Indian hemp, including preparations and containing hemp. In 1961, Australia signed the International Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs. This convention supports an obligation to make cannabis available as medicine. On May 30, 1967, the Commonwealth Government introduced the Narcotics Drugs Act of 1967. This act gives effect to certain of Australia's obligations under the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, 1961. The 1961 Single Convention has been supplemented by the Convention on Psychotropic Substances and the United Nations Convention against Illicit Traffic in Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances. On 24th of February 2016, the Australian Parliament made an amendment to the Narcotics Drug Act that legalised the growing of cannabis for medicinal and scientific purposes. On November 12, 2017, the Food Standard of Australia and New Zealand made hemp food legal for human consumption in Australia. So that's a good point to what I was saying just prior. Basically, before 2016, they were all clumped together like cannabis, opium, cocaine, morphine, heroin. So it's good that, and then I see that's a good factor in terms of why it's eight, because they're all, kind of sold by the same person in a general term. But it's good to see that they're finding their own classifications. According to the Ministerial Council on Drug Strategy, the National Drug Strategy and its substance-specific strategies were written for the general population of Australia. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander People's Complementary Action Plan 2003-06 was developed as a supplement to the National Action Plan so that these plans could be applied to Australia's Indigenous communities. According to Copeland and others from the NCPIC, the National Cannabis Prevention and Information Centre, that's pretty cool, it was established in 2008 in response to data published in the Pfizer Australia Health Report. Okay, you can look at that. At a national level, there is no override. So I'll read that again. According to Copeland and others from the NCPIC, at national level, there is no overriding law that deals with cannabis-related offences. Instead, each state and territory enacts its own legislation. While some jurisdictions enforce criminal penalties for possession, use, and supply, others enact civil penalties for minor cannabis offences. Conviction for a criminal offence will attract a criminal record and can be punishable by jail time and harsh fines. Civil penalties, however, do not result in a criminal record and are generally handled by lesser fines, mandatory treatment, and diversion programs. That's pretty cool information there. I'll just read this last bit because it goes into state by state, which we just read before. So Australia's states and territories. In the ACT, the Personal Cannabis Use Bill was passed on September 25, 2019. New laws came into effect on 31st January 2020. Possession of small amounts of cannabis and one or two plants remains an offence under the Act. However, the Act creates exemptions for persons aged over the age of 18, allowing for possession of up to 50 grams of dry material, 150 grams of wet material, and cultivation of 2 plants per individual and up to 4 plants per household. Those under the age of 18 are not exempt people under the amendments, and police officers hold ultimate direction to issue persons under the age of 18 a simple cannabis offence notice, or a SCON, or divert them to a drug and alcohol diversion program. If the SCON fine is paid within 60 days, no conviction will be recorded. Failure to pay the penalty may result in proceedings before the court. Under the changes, it is also prohibited to use cannabis in a public place, expose a child or a young person to cannabis smoke, store cannabis where children can reach it, grow cannabis using hydroponics or artificial cultivation, grow plants where they can be accessed by the public, share or give cannabis as a gift to another person, or to drive with any cannabis in your system, and for people aged under 18 to grow, possess, or use cannabis. So that's a pretty good paragraph there, sums it up. So then it just keeps going on there, state by state, breaks it down. So there is a link in the chat if you want to go check that out, and I do advise you guys do. But yeah, there's some good summary information there. But once again, this is not legal advice. It's just an overview of what is out there to try and just strike thought, really, and just make sure people are understanding the full scope of the law. So I don't know how long have I been going for. I'll come back to here. Oh, it's been half an hour. All right. So I think I've just gone through a few things there, and I'll get this out of the way. Yeah. So I really appreciate everybody coming through and listening. So I mean, I'm not saying I'm an expert on this topic at all, but I have had some experience, through the walks of life, through the court, and it's a very kind of important to me because, as I said before, there are many people out there suffering, and if they can, you know, tomorrow, if somebody is prevented from doing something because of this information that they see, that would be awesome. And that's kind of the purpose, because we need to be educated on the actualities of what's happening out there. But you know, do some studies. Check the link out in the chat if you want to find the information. Talk to a lawyer. Obviously, that's probably something major. But just keep advocating for the plan. And I guess a good point made before by members of the community is like the civil disobedience. We're not out there trying to like break down the system and be violent and break things. We're doing things in a very non-harmful, non-violent way, trying to benefit ourselves. So, and as I did say in the stream prior to this one, um, you know, in the eyes of the law, as long as you're doing all of these steps kind of just for personal use, and all of this, once somebody else gets involved, then the eyes of the law will come down on that. So if you're civilly disobedient just for yourself and, trying to change the law, change the stigma about this, and people's attitudes that they don't partake and they don't see, as we were talking about before in previous stream, that's going to be a great thing. We can change that, then the whole kind of environment might get to a better place. But it's step by step, and it's with authentic kind of honesty. So as I say, I'm going to get out of here. Much appreciation. It's look inside yourself, find your direction, follow that path, be the best you can be honest, and be yourself. Follow your intuition. Trust that gut instinct, and ganja is the greatest gift given. You've got a free yarndi. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope this information was a little bit helpful, and much peace to everybody. Check out everybody else in the community. I'm sure somebody will be live streaming a bit later. Hope to see you guys soon, and much peace.